Hey everyone, as we ring in this 2018 and watch 2017 drift away in the rearview mirror, just a little reminder to check out the Critical Breakdown on iTunes and leave us a rating and a review, because it feels real good when you do. And there's no better way to start the year than with just get that review out of the way, because you're going to leave one probably by September, and just do it now and you don't have to do it in September. A 5-star review on iTunes. It's easy as that. We'll read it too, because we like that. And we hope you like the episode that starts now.
Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and work our way to 100% fresh. I'm Max.
And I'm Scott, and today we're talking The Royal Tenenbaums, rated 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. That was a very royal introduction, wasn't it?
I felt very, you felt very pretentious, but in a fitting way, you know?
Yeah, did you feel like a kid in King Arthur's court?
No.
All right, that's probably for the best.
There could have been horns. If there was horns, I would have felt that way.
Oh, shoot. Well, a more committed host would have gotten horns for the bit, yeah. But I apologize.
Rented a horn section for that little minute, yeah.
But, well, anyways, how you doing, man?
I'm great.
I know the Royal Tenenbaums is a Max Rivera favorite.
It is. It's one of my favorite films, and it's pretty much been since I first saw it. So
there you go.
To our listeners, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah.
We had kind of a couple of weeks there where we had life happen, so we just.
I'm sure you listeners enjoyed our check-ins though. Our check-ins with
our silly little bonus episodes there.
And you know what, we've really enjoyed all the reviews. Hoping to get a couple more here. You know, while the iron's hot. While I think we got 9 or 10 reviews. Let's try and go for an even dozen here in January, right, gang?
Let's do it.
Yeah. What have you been watching, man? Let's hear a Max Rivera review.
Honestly, and I think you're in the same boat, over this past month, I've watched so much stuff that I've had to really limit what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, I'm just keeping it to the things I'm most interested in.
Recently, I watched a film with you, actually. This past weekend, we saw I, Tonya.
Yeah, I, Tonya.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't my favorite movie, but I enjoyed the performances. Yeah, the Royal Tenenbaums is one of them. I enjoyed the performances a lot. I thought it was really well acted. But there was just something with it where I like some of the messages in the film, kind of about media consumption.
Yeah, and like don't judge a book by its cover and all that.
And I did like, you know, kind of humanizing a figure like Tonya Harding. I think that's something they do effectively. But
for sure.
It's hard for me to see abuse against women, even how they're showing it, but in a comical way. That's where the film didn't really work for me, and there's a couple parts with it where it does work, and there's a couple parts where it just absolutely doesn't. And for me, that was just kind of.
Yeah, it was. There's whole sequences where the humor was built around spousal abuse, both ways, mostly towards Tonya. But I mean, she chased Jim. What was the character's name? I don't remember.
I know his last name's Galooly.
Yeah, Galooly. She chased Galooly around with a shotgun and stuff, and I don't know if it was trying to desensitize you to it, but it was just tough to swallow.
Yeah.
Like I get that you know, maybe it was real, though even that I think is in question. But because if you watch the movie, both of the characters argue that certain things did happen, certain things didn't happen. But regardless, it was tough to watch. You're right. That it did take me out of the movie quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like I've heard a lot of Oscar buzz for Margot Robbie and Allison Janney.
Yeah.
Who plays her mother. And Margot, I was not particularly wowed by Allison Janney. I feel like lately, whenever there's like a female character who like cusses and is real tough and stuff, kind of ever since J.K. Simmons and Whiplash, I feel like they always get a lot of praise. But
did he play a female in that one?
No, but he played the male version of her in this.
Oh, okay.
Basically.
I got you.
He played a tough, cussing, like making a mockery of his student instructor, and that was what she was doing here. But I can't think of any really off the top of my head other ones like that, but it didn't feel like that original of a role, which is kind of funny for a character based on a real person. But I don't really know the point I'm making, but I just wasn't all that impressed with her.
You just weren't wowed with her.
Yeah. I mean, especially, well, people have been saying, like, oh, she'll get the best supporting actress nod and all this. I'm like, I wasn't really blown away.
I mean, I thought she was pretty solid in it because...
yeah, she was fine. She's always pretty good.
I did feel sympathy for her, not in her last couple scenes, but kind of in a diner scene. I don't know, she managed to bring me back into, like, kind of feeling something for that character.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I did think she was also terrible, like, as a character, not as a performer. So
yeah.
But yeah, that was like I said, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like my favorite or anything.
Yeah, it was okay. Another one, I actually saw another one that I would describe in the same way. Molly's Game, the Aaron Sorkin directorial debut about the poker princess Molly. I don't remember the character's last name, but she was like a skiing star. Yeah, Molly's Game. Yeah, they're Czech. His directorial debut kind of got a lot of buzz, and it was another movie kind of in the same vein of I, Tonya, where it's driven by this lead actress performance. And I kind of had similar takeaways. It was fine. It was good. It didn't blow me away. But the performances were good. And Aaron Sorkin's an interesting like character study just as a creator. His writing is really good when it's really good, and then sometimes it can be really bad, like it gets too much. And I think we can circle it back to our movie today in a similar way to say Wes Anderson has a very distinctive style, and when it's good, it's really good. But then sometimes it can be a little too much. I think we talked about it way back in the day when we passed Life Aquatic, where that one seemed to be like a tipping point where it became a little too Wes Anderson-y. Yeah. And Molly's Game was right on the edge there for being too Aaron Sorkin-y. Too Aaron Sorkin is like Newsroom, the TV show. Just so full of himself, and the dialogue is just like unrealistically witty and everything, and it's tough to watch sometimes. But this one was okay. One of those
things where every character is just a genius for some reason.
Yeah, every character, and they always have that snappy comeback. And his writing here was good, but his directing was like pretty uninspired in my opinion. I likened it to I told you right afterward. It was like he watched The Big Short and then decided he wanted to make a movie and just made his version of The Big Short. There's like The Big Short was cool because it had the editing with like real imagery of the stock market and stuff, and it's like rapid fire, and then they'd have the scenes with like Anthony Bourdain explaining a financial thing and Selena Gomez explaining something, and it felt like he was trying to do all that, and it's just not as good.
Yeah.
But it's still a fun enough movie. One thing that I think is really interesting, the story about her like kind of forbidden poker game, high stakes poker game, features a character called, they just call him Player X in the movie, and in her novel that it's based on, that's what they call it. But apparently, and I have no knowledge of whether or not this is true, but I've heard that the Player X is Tobey Maguire. And in the movie, he's played by Michael Cera, and he does some real assholey things. So it's just like, it was just kind of funny. I read afterward that it was Tobey Maguire, so.
That's funny.
Yeah, but it's an interesting enough story that it's worth watching. Just don't get your hopes too high, is what I'd say.
Yeah, Jessica Chastain, there's been some films I've seen where her performances really carry it. I saw her in Miss Sloane, which to me very much felt like it was trying to be an Aaron Sorkin project, but I don't remember if it was. No, it wasn't. And then I recently saw her in The Zookeeper's Wife.
Did you watch that?
Yeah.
I started it the other day on HBO, and I just couldn't get into it, but I was like actively napping, so that's more on me.
It's a slower paced film. It's all right. It didn't really blow me away.
Yeah.
And anything. The performances were solid.
It kind of got dumped in that didn't come out like January or February of this year, where movies that could have been Oscar movies and then just aren't get dumped.
Yeah.
I mean, it got no buzz. I don't even remember when it came out. I remember seeing a trailer for a long time with no release date, and then it just kind of ended up in theaters. So.
Yeah, and watching it made me think Daniel Bruhl, he started out his career pretty good, and now he just kind of plays a lot of creeps and weirdos, and, you know.
Well, in the first 10 minutes I watched, I thought he was a Nazi in this movie, but apparently he ran a zoo.
You're correct on both.
There you go. Nailed it.
He's in the Nazi version of We Bought a Zoo, so.
Yeah.
No, I won't go into that one too much. It was just all right, but
yeah.
Now I've watched some other stuff too. I've put in some time on some television shows as well.
Yeah, what do you got?
I watched most of the new season of Black Mirror.
Oh, cool.
As with Black Mirror, some of the episodes are just really awesome, and some are just super depressing. And I've seen one that just really I didn't really care for. That was just so glum and gloomy that it wasn't fun to watch at all.
In this new season?
In this new season,
one was like that?
Yeah. I mean, they have a ton of those throughout the whole series, but
yeah.
But it was just like, that one was like, eh. And there's another one that's kind of like it, but it's at least like visually really appealing. But there's been some really solid episodes. I keep telling you I think it's called USS Callister. That's the one with Jesse Plemons and Jimmy Simpson. It's really good. That's kind of the closest you get to the San Junipero of this season.
Okay, that's the famously upbeat one.
Yeah. And the final episode of this series, the season's really solid too. So
yeah, I feel like this season of Black Mirror came out with less buzz than past seasons, or did I just miss the internet train on it?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, maybe.
I remember when all the trailers came out, they did a different trailer for every episode this time instead of a trailer for the season. But I just didn't watch any of them because I didn't want to be I don't really watch Black Mirror that much. But when I do, I want to keep it,
yeah,
fresh. I don't know why I didn't. I'm not that into it, I guess. But I feel like I didn't hear that much about this season, and it came out, and I know people who watched it, but I haven't heard any media buzz or anything. I don't know. It's weird. What's up with that, man?
I don't know, man. Yeah, maybe it's everyone's kind of just still working through it, or I don't know. I kind of with Black Mirror, and I mean even with a lot of satirical things. The past year was just so weird. People are kind of getting used to new stuff in their lives, so maybe it just doesn't resonate as much as it could. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I have no explanation for that, really. So
yeah, it was just kind of a observation more than anything. I mentioned earlier Molly's Game. In the movie, they call her the Poker Princess. I watched another princess movie. I watched Moana over the Christmas break.
Oh, hey, me too.
Oh, that's funny. I never caught it in, what, did it come out 2016, 2015? I don't even remember. 2016, I think. Yeah. But I fucking loved it. I thought it was amazing.
The music's really, really good.
The music's awesome. The visuals are really good. I haven't gotten, captured by that Disney magic like I did in my youth in a long time until this movie.
Yeah.
I've been listening to the soundtrack, nonstop ever since I watched it.
That's good. It's really good music, man. It's Lin-Manuel Miranda, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
My boy.
Yeah. It was good stuff, though, man. I was looking for something light while I was moving. Something I was like, if I watch it, great. If not, whatever. And I watched the whole thing.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. You got anything? I got a lot more, but I'm just not going to talk about it.
Yeah, let's just save it for future episodes because we have a ton probably that we watch that we can get into. So. Yeah,
but I know we both like the Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah.
So let's Tenenbaums over Baghdad,
There's an idea.
Max, what's the plot synopsis for the Royal Tenenbaums?
A family's estranged patriarch returns home after he learns that his ex-wife plans to remarry.
That's a weird... I mean, it's sort of accurate. I mean, it is accurate, but it's just kind of a weird way to boil down the movie.
I think it's the most concise way to talk about it, really, because if not, you have to pick one focus character. And honestly, he's the most prominent character. Yeah,
no, I mean, he definitely is.
But to clear that up, just before we get too deep, he's kind of also the antagonist. He's definitely the antagonist as well as a protagonist. So
yeah, for sure.
It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, and so it makes it such a good movie. Royal himself, the titular character, is played by Gene Hackman.
Mm-hmm.
Really good, too.
Yeah, great performance.
I was really impressed by him. We were looking it up, and, I mean, he's very old now, and he doesn't look so good. But here he was, still pretty sprightly, and, I mean, he definitely does look old. But this is his, third to last movie. I forget the two that came out after it. It was, Runaway Jury and... Welcome to Mooseport or something like that.
Yeah, there's one that was more known, but I don't remember what it is. But it wasn't as good as this, that's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like this would have been like a perfect way to cap his career. You know, he's had such a prolific career, and he was really good here. But I mean, this movie's all about the ensemble.
Yeah.
The ensemble, if you will.
And it works, I think. It's a good ensemble.
Oh, for sure. You have the matriarch of the Tenenbaum family, Angelica Houston, who I haven't really seen her in much other than knowing that she's the mother in the Addams family.
Yeah, Morticia,
that's right. And you're a big Addams Family fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I like the Addams Family. It's good.
There you go.
I don't know if I'm a big Addams Family fan, but like I like the movies.
No, it's on record, man. You're a big fan. That's fine.
It's it's good stuff. They need to get Oscar Isaac in a new one. That's what they need to do.
Play who?
To play Gomez Addams. That's what they should do.
Okay. Ben Stiller plays I think the eldest of the Tenenbaum children.
Chaz Tenenbaum.
Yeah. Gwyneth Paltrow and Luke Wilson as the other kids.
Yep.
And then Bill Murray sneaks in there, as he does in most Wes Anderson work.
Mm-hmm.
And then Danny Glover plays a sweet, sweet old dude, Henry Sherman.
Real sweet old dude.
Yeah. It's good stuff, though. It's a good cast.
Yeah, it's a great cast. You also have, did you mention Owen Wilson's in here as well?
If not, then I meant to.
Yeah, he plays the across-the-street neighbor who grew up with them named Eli Cash.
Yeah.
And there's just a bunch of random little people, like not little people, but little roles from a lot of unknowns, and also Wes Anderson like regulars. So
yeah, a lot of Wes Anderson regulars, but I mean this is early Wes Anderson as they were becoming regulars. Wasn't the third Wilson brother in this? Was his name Andrew Wilson?
Yeah, he is. He plays the voice of one of the tennis newscasters.
That was probably one of my favorite scenes. But also, I was reading that Chaz had a BB stuck in his hand, and when they show it on camera, it's actually was it Andrew Wilson? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually Andrew Wilson's hand. So
yeah, which is kind of a fun little Easter egg to put in there.
It's a very fun little Easter egg to put in there.
You know, Gene Hackman was actually kind of hesitant to do this film.
Why is that?
Because as it turns out, he wasn't always the most present father for his family. And so that gave him some hesitance because he was worried he would bring up hard feelings with his own family, so he had to talk to them before he accepted it.
Oh, I'm glad he did. Well, I'm assuming he did. Yeah, eventually
he did.
I mean, he ended up in the film, so he obviously accepted it. But I hope he buried the hatchet with his family.
I don't know about that, but I know him and Angelica Houston also didn't want to accept the roles, even though they were like the first picks for it, until the roles were kind of like beefed up a little bit more.
Interesting.
So I guess it was more just kid focused at first, probably, and then kind of expanded to include more of their full characterizations, which I think was
hard. It's hard to picture the movie without like Royal as the driver.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it definitely helped the story.
If it wasn't like that, I imagine the primary plot line would have been Margot and Richie's forbidden romance.
Yeah.
Margot was an adopted daughter of the Tenenbaums, and Richie's the youngest brother, and they have romantic feelings for one another. But if they are not doing the whole Royal thing, I don't even see what else you could do, because Chaz, one of my only complaints, because I love the movie, Chaz is not very well developed throughout. They kind of set him up at the beginning, and then there's not much for him to do, I didn't think. And even was the mother's name Etheline?
Etheline.
Yeah, I didn't feel like she had that much, other than obviously the relationship with Henry. But I feel like the one that had the most weight throughout would have been the Margot, Richie, maybe even Eli for a little love triangle.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely think that Margot and Richie are like the next big focus after Royal's interaction with everybody. Just because Margot has so much like tied to her.
Yeah, exactly.
As does Richie, but they have so many like interactions with everyone, so I think that makes sense.
What's for me the best thing about the movie is, yes, there's these strings that go throughout, but I mean, in any Wes Anderson movie, it's like in the details that makes it so good, and it's just very little side plots that don't even become plots, or just little things that happen are just all so satisfying. Like at one point, Richie is a tennis pro, or a former tennis pro, and they show his last match where he like totally flopped, and it's just a hilarious scene of him playing tennis and the commentators. And at one point, one of the commentators like, "Is he crying?" And the other one's like, "I do think he's crying, yes." But it's so funny. And there's a whole other plot line with Bill Murray's character where he is like examining this boy who has this made up disease that has like the weirdest symptoms and everything, but they're just really funny scenes. Like the first time you see him, he's like taking notes. He's like, and it gives him, he's dyslexic and he has a very astute sense of hearing. And then you see the kid like 3 rooms down just turn around. He's like, or colorblind is what it was.
Yeah.
He's like, "Am I really colorblind?" He's like, "Yes, you are." It's just really funny. There's another scene at the end that I love with them, but all those little things just support like the overall package and make it such like a fun film.
Yeah, and there's actually like a huge amount of world building that goes in the movie, because everything you just mentioned is like, it kind of establishes the world even more.
Yeah.
Like, the first 10 minutes of the movie is establishing the family, kind of the universe they've been in, where it's, they're a house of child prodigies, and they're all geniuses. Chaz was like a business genius by 14, buying real estate. Richie. Yeah. What I like about Richie is he was a tennis pro, but he also was trying to be an artist and just was not good at it. Yeah. So all of his painting skill isn't that great, but they're kind of like cool looking still because you see them all the time in the house.
Yeah, and it's like Wes Anderson style stuff, so it all fits like a motif.
And then with Margot, they hinted a lot of her story, but you don't find it out till later. And the montage they do for that is like really, really nicely put together. So there's just little hints at stuff all the time. There's the Dalmatian mice running around. People constantly stop Richie to take photos with him. There's just a lot of little stuff, and it all adds up. And even with like Eli Cash, everything he does is just fascinating to me. And apparently some character. Of his writing style that they mention is based off Cormac McCarthy, which makes me laugh even more. So,
He's a pretty well-established author.
Yeah. But I don't think they're like spoofing Cormac McCarthy. I think it's just like the idea of his style of storytelling, because he describes his writing at one point as an obsolete vernacular. And it just makes
I hear terms like that, and that just it's like, yeah, that's Wes Anderson.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like pure and pure. How about the box office for this one though?
I don't know about that. What do you know about that?
All right, so this bad boy had a cool $21 million budget, a nice small mid-budget film. Mm-hmm. It did pretty well for itself. It made $52.4 million domestically. So nice little ROI, return on investment. It had one of those classic limited opening in December, go wide in January's. So its wide opening weekend was January 4th of 2002. Where it made $8.5 million, and that was number 5 behind the third week of Lord of the Rings: Fellowship of the Ring, the third week of eventual Best Picture winner A Beautiful Mind, and the 5th week of Ocean's 11.
I keep forgetting about A Beautiful Mind.
Wow,
it's funny because in all the films that were just mentioned, like the others are much more. I remember them a lot more, basically.
Than A Beautiful Mind?
Yeah, like, honestly, that film just didn't do much for me, so...
yeah, but in fairness, the others that were mentioned were Lord of the Rings and Ocean's 11, so...
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying between Royal Tenenbaums, Ocean's 11, Lord of the Rings, and then A Beautiful Mind, I'm like, okay. Like, yeah, I guess I remember Beautiful Mind, that's all I'm saying, like...
2002 is a pretty good year for the box office, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Fellowship of the Ring and stuff,
Yeah.
What's interesting is the Royal Tenenbaums had 1 Oscar nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, and a lot of movies like A Beautiful Mind, and I saw Amelie was on there. None of them won, though. The winner was a movie called Gosford Park, which I legitimately had not heard of.
I have heard of that one.
What's the deal with it? What's the deal with Gosford Park?
I think it's a mystery. I've honestly never seen it. Not that it's a mystery to me, but...
a confirmed mystery.
Yeah. But I want to say Helen Mirren's in it, but I don't remember, honestly. I never saw it. I just remember Gosford Park.
Yeah. We'll have to watch and report back. It won at least 1 Oscar, so it had to be good.
Good for it, yeah. It had to be good.
That's the big BO story, the big box office story. You were telling me earlier that fun fact about Ocean's 11 in this movie.
I was telling you that Danny Glover and both Wilson brothers that star in the movie, they turned down Ocean's 11 to be in Royal Tenenbaums.
Oh, that's right. It was you.
Yeah, which I said I think was the right decision that I would have also made. So.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like artistically it's hard to argue that Royal Tenenbaums is above Ocean's 11.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Ocean's 11 is a blockbuster. They're very different.
Yeah, and you know, like a Wes Anderson film is going to at least be pretty well received if the script reads, nicely.
Well, now we know that, but this is what his second film.
This is his third feature film, but I mean, Rushmore was kind of like a big, darling, and then Bottle Rocket had some, people liked Bottle Rocket. So I'm just saying, like 3 in, you could be like, well, that's a pretty good,
sure.
like artistically, that's going to be well received.
Plus, then, Luke and Owen were in both Rushmore and Bottle Rocket. So.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, they know him, so
they knew what they were getting into.
Yeah, they've been friends with Wes Anderson for quite a bit. So
yeah, I'm actually checking really quick. I was gonna say it's a clean sweep, but Owen Wilson was in at least every Wes Anderson film up till Moonrise Kingdom, which I have not seen, and he's not in the list of 5 actors on Box Office Mojo for the film, so he might have even still been in it.
I don't know. I watched half of that one, but honestly, I watched it way too late at night, and I ended up falling asleep and just never went back to it. It wasn't like bad; it just didn't grab me. Yeah,
no, I get that. That happens to me sometimes too. I set myself up for it. I watch a movie in a position where I'm probably not going to stay awake.
Laying down.
Yeah.
Just for the record, Lucas Hedges is in this film too, in the one we were just talking about.
Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah.
No, I knew that.
I know you're a fan.
Is he in Royal Tenenbaums?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
No, he had been like the sperm cell in this period or something. So.
Damn. Yeah, no, I knew Lucas Hedges was in Moonrise Kingdom, because him and one of I believe the female lead of Moonrise Kingdom were both in Manchester by the Sea.
Okay.
Cara Hayward. That's her name.
Yeah.
But anyways, anywho.
So get this.
Also, Lucas Hedges was 5 when the Royal Tenenbaums came out.
What I said, the sperm cell.
He could have played young Chaz, for all I know.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that, Gene Hackman was a little bit hesitant to be in the film. After he got into the film, a lot of the crew that knew, a lot of the cast that knew about Hackman's kind of like on-set persona, that were familiar with his acting, they would hang around just to make sure they could protect Wes Anderson from Gene Hackman, which is very interesting to me. Is
Gene famous for taking hacks at the man in charge?
God. That's our show, guys. Just you can find no.
Yeah, we're done forever.
No, apparently Gene Hackman's very difficult on set. I guess he's argumentative and kind of runs the show when he's around there. So, Angelica Houston would show up, Gwyneth Paltrow, Bill Murray would kind of show up and just kind of rein him in when they needed to. Even when they weren't supposed to be working, they would just show up and kind of keep him in check, kind of. So
he looks like a sweet old man now, so it's hard to picture that. But I also don't live or work in Hollywood, so what would I know?
Yeah. But I just thought that was kind of interesting that they would want to protect the director from the actor.
Yeah.
But it makes sense when you have a reputation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously his reputation preceded him.
It kind of also plays well to the character that he's playing. So
yeah, maybe it was just method acting or something.
Yeah, maybe. So we've kind of hit most of the highlights with the behind the scenes kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The film itself, it's kind of cool because they use the format of a book as a narrative storytelling tool, where it's in chapters, but it's not like where Tarantino does the chapter name on the screen. It's like an actual book, and
they show an
actual first page of a chapter And it has the first few text of prose, like the first few lines of prose describing what you're about to see. And
and I kept every time they did that, I kept looking to see Alec Baldwin narrates the movie, and I kept looking to see if what they say in the book was what Alec Baldwin says, like if it was sort of like the script, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
At least not every time it wasn't.
No, and I like that a lot because there's scenes where it's like Royal is laying down, getting a massage, and you can see his law books on the wall, and that's what like the page is describing. But the Baldwin,
and then it like goes down to
the Baldwin narration is like something else completely different. But but it's cool that it shows it like kind of aligning every single time. I thought the narration worked very well for this film. One of the few films I can think of that has like really strong narration that actually adds to the story.
Yeah, I know you're not wild about narration just in general as a device.
Yeah.
Does every Wes Anderson movie have narration?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Some do, for sure, but I don't think.
Admittedly, I haven't seen that much Wes Anderson. I've seen The Grand Budapest Hotel, this, and Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah. And
that's actually it, surprisingly. But those all do, I know. I think.
Let me.
Are you looking it up?
I don't remember Rushmore having one. Bottle Rocket definitely did not have narration. And then I don't think Life Aquatic did.
Well, there you go.
But I've only seen that one once, so.
Yeah. Yeah, my memory could be betraying me as well.
I might snip this section out. We'll see. Because we don't have a strong answer here. But yeah, no, I mean, for me, the narration worked really well here just because it adds to the story, but it's not just describing it. It's like, it is a part of the film. Because there are certain parts where one of my favorite parts of the movie is after Royal is exposed for his big lie in the film. He says a line that's like, the past 2 weeks or the past 6 days have been the best 6 days of my life. And at the time, as soon as he says it, the narrator comes out. Alec Baldwin's narrator says, Royal didn't realize it when he was saying it, but that was actually a completely true statement, something like that. Yeah. And the way that Gene Hackman's face just kind of portrays that moment, it's just super powerful for me. And I don't think without the narration it would work as well. But since the narrator is kind of like a living narrator within the story, it works rather than just somebody saying like, and then Royal went to the store. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's more
that's what
emotional.
A narrator can add. Yeah. Because that, like you said, it's hard to portray that emotion without that bonus narration. Like I'm trying to even picture a way anything could have done it really. And it would either be a massive acting challenge or it would just be awkward to try and show it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does help streamline the movie too, because it takes place over a pretty lengthy period of time.
It's funny
because they kind of skip around a little because they get to use the narration and everything.
They describe it as like 6 or 7 days, I think. But you've already seen like 3 seasons by that point.
Yeah, there's like winter and and then the proposal was one day, and then like 3 days later in the movie they were getting married, but realistically, imagine there was a little more time.
Yeah, and I like that they don't really have that clear, where it's like you could kind of assume it's been a while because of the seasons, but then at the same time they reference it being just a few days. I don't know. There's something whimsical about it that it works.
Yeah, it lets it kind of builds almost like a fairy tale like quality to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is not a fairy tale at all.
No.
It is, as we mentioned, kind of from the get-go, it's a story of like an estranged father who was very absent for his children. He's very selfish.
Yeah.
Like constantly, like when he's talking to Richie, he'll constantly be like, "Oh, well, like I had a lot of money riding on that match, like the one that he blew, when clearly like something was going on with his son, but he has no concern for that." And it all kind of boils over at the wedding itself. That's when when Royal, at least I feel like, really steps up. The other triggering moment where things really turn is Richie actually attempts to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
About 2/3 of the way through the movie?
Yeah.
And the whole family's gathered at the hospital except for Royal. When Royal finds out, he's trying to get there, and they won't let him in because of visiting hours and everything, and all this complicated stuff happens. But there's a lot of really powerful dialogue and a good show of the relationships in this sequence.
Yeah. And this film actually manages to balance a lot of like dark themes with comedy, as well as having strong emotion like emotional releases that work as well. One of my favorite lines that I laugh at, even though it's in a dark moment of the film, is Chaz is asking Richie, because you could tell Chaz is having a hard time processing that his brother tried to commit suicide. And Chaz's character, I mean, is very much driven by this idea of avoiding death because his wife just died in a plane crash. And he's like very paranoid and very focused on safety. So like for him to try and understand suicide is just very tough for him. And he's asking him, well, did you write a note? Like, was there a suicide note? And it's funny. It's a Wes Anderson moment. But Richie's like, after I came back to consciousness, I did write a note. And Chaz's next question was like, was it dark? And Richie says, of course it was dark. It was a suicide note. And it's just like a really silly exchange in the middle of like this shitty situation. But it just kind of works to make you kind of like break from like the heaviness that is suicide. So
yeah, I mean that's kind of what makes Wes Anderson's career work.
Yeah,
I mean, he wrote the film and he writes all his films, and I don't know. I mean, a lot of them deal with serious stuff, and his writing's just really good. It can keep the levity without like sapping the seriousness of a subject, which is a pretty nice thing to be able to do when you're dealing with stuff like suicide and incest is sort of touched on in this. Not really, though, because they make it very clear from the start that she's adopted. But it is a weird thing still.
It's conceptually, incest for all intents and purposes, but they're not blood relatives. But
but they keep it light. And,
and I like that it's never fully cleared in the film either, because at one point Margot, because the whole thing with it is Margot and Richie are in love with each other. They've been in love with each other pretty much always, and they've taken that two different directions. When they finally confess their feelings, they do share a kiss, and she leaves that scene saying, I think we're just going to have to secretly be in love with each other, and that's it.
And leave it at that.
Yeah. And so then he kind of approaches his father and asks him for advice, and he's like, I'm not going to lie, that it's kind of weird, but I forgot his exact word, but he's like, everything's kind of weird these days, so, whatever. He's like, if it makes you happy, go with it. Which is like when Royal kind of starts becoming more of a
actual father figure.
Exactly, yeah. And and I like that they show moments where they're like with each other, but they don't really show it like fully, because there'll be a moment where they're like, close together, but then they're not. And it's just they never say like they end up getting married or anything weird like that. So it's just kind of hinted at still, but.
There's another scene that I thought was really nice where the Wes Anderson writing helps provide that kind of levity or that little layer of humor in a serious moment. Eli is addicted to drugs, and at one point I think Richie and Royal maybe approach him, and they're talking to him, and they're just saying like, oh, you need help and all this. And Eli says something like, I wish you would have done this for me when I was a kid. And Richie said, well, you didn't have a drug problem then. And he says, I think the line is like, yeah, but it would have meant a lot to me. Like, because Eli's whole thing is like, he always wanted to be a Tenenbaum.
Yeah.
He's always hanging out at their house and everything. And he's not. And was the book he wrote about the Tenenbaums?
No. Ethylene wrote a book about her kids being, child geniuses when they were young. Yeah. I know that. And then he wrote, I want to say he wrote two books, one called Old Custard and one called Wildcat.
Old Custard.
Old Custer.
Yeah. It sounded like he said custard, which made me laugh.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So what would that even be about?
Just some old custard, man. It's you got to make new custard.
Yeah. Fair enough. But there's all sorts of little moments like that speckled throughout this movie that work. One thing that I really like is Danny Glover's character is just like the sweetest guy. He plays Henry Sherman, who's just like truly his whole character is he's a really nice guy. And in other movies that might feel one note, but here it's just like you kind of needed it, and it works so well.
Royal says at one point, I finally get why you like this guy. He's everything that I'm not.
Yeah.
Which is like 100% true.
Yeah.
And what I like a lot with Henry's character is he seems to want to, be a good person to her family. He's never trying to like step on their toes. He's trying to respect their wishes. So, when Richie's like, he's going to stay here about Royal, like, Henry for everything, he could throw a fit about it and be angry, but he's not, he accepts it. He understands it. He kind of stays quiet about it. And then he also realizes every time Royal provokes him, his best thing to do with it is like try to back down and get out of it, but also he can't help getting angry about it. And so when he finally like, you know, kind of solves the equation there and exposes Royal's big lie, at one point Royal to Margot's like, you know, he's not your father, and she's like, neither are you. And there's all these moments like that where the kids are kind of learning to like him, and it's easy to like him. I mean, he's completely likable. But then the one kid who isn't is Chaz. Chaz is actively like upset about him all the time. He's like, what do you have? Like, why do you have an opinion about this? You don't, you know, live here. He says something like that at one point to him. But what I like about it is they show how much Chaz and Royal actually have in common. Where while Chaz is, you know, so super focused on his kids and stuff, he's kind of selfish throughout the whole thing, especially towards Henry. So much that at the end of it, at the wedding, Chaz realizes Henry has a son, and he's like, "You have a son?" He's like, "Oh, you were married?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm a widower." Yeah. Like, you know, he just says, "I'm a widower," and then Chaz is like, "Oh, I am too," and Henry's like, "I know, Chaz." Like, just and very nice, not even like trying to be a dick or anything. Just like, "I know."
Yeah, just like I know. Yeah,
and it's just like so supportive and nice and sweet, and it's. I don't know. It just really works. And Danny Glover's the perfect person for that, you know?
Yeah. Oh, no, he definitely is. That's what makes it makes it work so well.
Yeah.
There's other points where, like, when Royal and Henry are talking, Henry will say, like, I don't think you're an asshole, Royal. And Royal's just like, that really means a lot to me. Yeah. But, like, it really does, because he's a good guy.
That's for sure my favorite line, because he goes, you know, a lot of people think I'm an asshole. He's like, I don't think you're an asshole, Royal. I think you're just kind of son of a bitch.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So, and it is sincere. He's like, oh, I appreciate that. Like, it's so perfect. I don't know. It's one of those moments where I just laugh every single time.
Yeah. I mean, the movie's full of stuff like that. The one disappointment that I mentioned earlier was Chaz's character. Really, his main role at the start is honestly to show how much of an asshole Royal is.
Yeah.
And I wish it developed a little more then, but even in its lack of development for my liking, there's a moment at the end after Eli crashes his car into the wedding and everything, and Royal gets to them, the Dalmatian, because Buckley, their beagle, died. And I forget what they're doing, why they're next to each other, but Chaz just looks at his dad and just says, like, it's been a rough year, Dad. And he says, like, I know, Chazzy. And, like, that's it.
Yeah.
But it resolves that relationship so well because you can just, like, plug in the future to it. They didn't need to say more, and I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, and I'm glad
that that's a very much a less is more moment.
When they do show something with it, it's the ending narration, which picks up shortly after that moment, where it shows Chaz going out and like cutting it up with Royal and his kids finally, and then they're on the garbage truck like they rode earlier, and it's the four
Chaz
of them.
is there too, yeah.
And then you see Royal start to have a heart attack, and then they kind of go into this whole bit about Royal dying and how Chaz is the last person with him in the ambulance.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful moment for me, for sure. I know when I first saw the movie, I was like, oh, wow, like I wasn't expecting that moment to happen there. And it's kind of interesting how they do it just through narration, because it kind of leaves you that positive moment with, you know, Chaz and Royal kind of coming to terms with everything. And then you just end it with that. But like I said, since the narration's kind of been emotionally involved the whole time, I thought it worked pretty well. And then they have the funeral scene, which I liked, which tied back to earlier when Royal saying he wants like a good epitaph on his grave. Yeah. And it's kind of a nice reveal at the end. But I don't know. There's so many little moments that add up to things later that I just love about this movie.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's just a really well-crafted family story. It never tries to be more than it needs to be, which is kind of a nothing statement. But you see a lot of movies try and inject, like a movie will inject a real romance. Like a worse director would have had Chaz meet someone.
Yeah.
Or like Henry's daughter would have been perfect for Chaz or something. Yeah. And it's just like, there's no need for it. And the romance in this movie is weird. It's
non-conventional.
It's Richie and it's Margot. Yeah, it's non-conventional. Well,
then there's also, you know, Henry and Etheline. But they're old. They're old people. Yeah. And that's non-conventional for movies. And it's an interracial old couple. And I love it. I think it's great. That one. But the other one is kind of meant to make you feel kind of uncomfortable, but it's, you know, still interesting. So
yeah, for sure. The soundtrack of this movie is like pretty amazing.
Yeah. I believe the scoring, because I'm just gonna mention that real quick, is Mark Mothersbaugh, who he was in Devo, and I want to say he did the music for the show Yo Gabba Gabba at points, or at least he was involved with it. Which our friend Julia Vickerman, former guest, she worked on too, so that's pretty cool. But then the soundtrack, like we were mentioning, is freaking amazing.
Yeah. I honestly didn't even notice the scoring, which sometimes that's a good thing. Like that's kind of the point. But the soundtrack itself is just really great.
There's a lot of big hits on here from kind of like, the 60s to 70s. The movie itself kind of has a 70s feel to it.
It kind of exists outside of time.
Yeah. That's kind of a Wes Anderson feature there. Thing, but no, and they do a lot of cool things like bringing back old buses in New York, old gypsy cabs. They have some Beatles songs. They have some that are like Beatles covers. They have
Rolling
Stones. There's my favorite moment in the film, like visually, is when Margot gets off the Green Line bus to get Richie at the bus station. And there's the slow-mo shot of her walking off the bus. That's just like my favorite shot in the film. And and it's, you hear guitar playing, and it's the song by Nico. Just a really nice song. And it's just like a really perfect Wes Anderson moment where it's him. There's no question that's a Wes Anderson like movie moment. But it just works, I don't know, it just works so damn well.
That's why it's a Wes Anderson movie moment, because it works so well.
Yeah.
That's what he does. Like, if you were going to comment on just Wes Anderson's career, you could say that he's formulaic, or that he doesn't stray too far from, a pretty standard Wes Anderson cat. Like, he's kind of made his own genre. And I feel like indie movies, this might just be because of my awareness of movies and stuff. Indie movies are much bigger now than they used to be. And I think part of it is because movies like the Royal Tenenbaums and Wes Anderson's career became like mainstream hits and stuff, like this Little Miss Sunshine. I know it's not him, but that's another one where it's like an indie movie that kind of takes off. And now these indie movies get a lot more love.
Yeah. Pretty much what you're talking about. He's from the 90s group of like indie filmmakers who became big
mainstream
names.
Yeah.
And some of them stayed in the indie realm, and some went on to like be more household names, which he's a household name, I would say, for film people, but like some people kind of still stayed low key, more mid-budget type of stuff, which he definitely did. And then some took off and, make major blockbusters now, but definitely, that kind of mid to late 90s, like indie movie rush is kind of what brought him into the limelight. And he's made kind of his own, like a Wes Anderson movie is its own genre, basically. Yeah. So,
and the reason that it works is, he's a really good filmmaker. The framing on all his shots and all of his movies is just like insane. But there's little things. Every movie has like a frame. Every shot has like a frame within the frame or something like that. And it's just really good. And that's the kind of eye for detail that makes a movie from like a good movie to an incredibly good movie.
Yeah, and what's really cool with it, too, is just, all these shots are amazing, like you said. There's a ton of two shots, which, for people that know, that's just a shot with two people. So there's a bunch of two shots, a lot of medium shots, that's from the waist up. There's a lot of zoom pans, where you zoom in and pan out, like, just really cool shots that you don't really see that much anymore. So it's kind of nice to see him, implement those in a movie. And then... you asked at one point when we were watching it, you were like, where did they film this? I was like, I'm pretty sure it's New York City. Like, I'm like 98% sure, because it's set in New York. They never say it's flat out New York, but it's set there. You can tell.
And there's never like a shot of the Empire State Building.
Yeah, exactly.
Something.
And one of the reasons that is because he would literally frame shots so that people were blocking the major attractions of New York. So there's one shot where I think the character Pagoda is talking to Royal, and I want to say it's Pagoda is blocking the Statue of Liberty. Like, he put him there on purpose to just cover it up completely. So
because then all that stuff becomes part of the movie, and
and you just exactly. So
that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's cool.
It's just kind of cool that like it looks like New York, but then you're like, this could be another city, because at one point you're like, that looks like Atlanta. I really can't even tell. And it's cool because it makes it almost even more of like a realistic fantasy setting, or it's you know the city but you don't. It kind of has this like whimsical 70s feel to it, and without seeing the landmarks, you're just like, yeah, this I don't know where this is. This is cool. Like it just looks nice
for sure.
So
it's just a nice movie, man.
Yeah, it really is.
The Criterion Collection version, spot on. Some nice extra features.
Yeah, some good stuff on there.
Yeah. But what else could we have watched? I mean, clearly we both really like the Royal Tenenbaums. But what else? What were other options?
Well, since we're in that these high numbers now, we're in the 80s. It's
high boys.
It's mostly good movies for different people. Maybe not our favorite films, but I think you can make a case for almost every movie on this line here.
Movies with appeal.
Yeah. So we'll start off right off the bat with The Revenant.
Yeah, I did not love The Revenant. I personally find Inarritu a little much. Maybe I don't know the right way to put it. A little boring. I didn't even like Birdman, but I didn't like this one too much either.
I think it's funny with him. I like a lot of his work, and I think for me, what it is if you're like a technical film nerd, like if you're really nerd off on technical stuff, he's a blast to watch. And I get why some people don't like him. I'm not saying you're not by any means, but I can nerd out on like cameras and stuff like that, and actively do, and like lighting, and we'll get like obsessed into like looking into that stuff. And I think that's why he has appeal for me. But The Revenant,
I mean, I get the appeal. Yeah. He's a very nice visual director. I just thought it was boring.
No, and I feel you on that. I'm saying The Revenant's not my favorite.
There's a bear attack, and I still found it boring.
I was really into Tom Hardy in The Revenant.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Hardy's the best part of The Revenant.
Yeah.
I also sort of resent that Leo gets his Oscar for The Revenant when it is not even close to his best work, in my opinion. And I didn't even feel like he had that much he had to do in The Revenant. And it felt more like a career achievement Oscar to me, which I think he's deserved Oscars before, but it was a little frustrating to me that this is the one that he gets it for, I don't know. I mean, that's a terrible reason to not like a film. But
there's easily like a half dozen films he's been in where he should have won something for it, but
Yeah, for sure. But that's life.
We had Macbeth, the most recent one.
Yeah, with Fassbender.
I never saw it.
It's a cool movie, but man, it is impossible to understand.
Yeah.
Like, it's true, like that old English iambic pentameter, everything.
Nice.
It is just a tough one it's literally hard to understand.
Yeah. We also had Z for Zachariah.
I like that movie too. That's another indie movie that came out of Sundance, and
it's an end of the world film, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I wanted to.
Yeah. It's got a lot of folks that I know you enjoy.
Yeah. Well,
in it, so
yeah, it's got Margot. So
Chris Pine.
Yeah. Don John.
I watched Don John for the first time last year. I didn't like it very much personally.
For everything I liked, there was about a dozen things I didn't like.
No.
It was all right. It just didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, I didn't even finish it. I watched an hour and I was like, I am not enjoying this.
It does get better on the second half, but I mean, if you're not in that far, you might as well. I mean, any movie, if you get halfway through and you just hate it, just shut it off. Like, why
just
not?
Don't. Yeah.
You can hate watch, but sometimes it's not great.
Yeah.
Speaking of The Fault in Our Stars.
I never saw it, so I can't really judge, but I love a coming of age movie, so.
I just don't have interest in this one. I have no problems with it, but I just had no interest in it.
Yeah. I am a little more interested now that Ansel Elgort, is that his name?
I think
Ansel Elgort from Baby Driver. I like him in Baby Driver. Yeah. So it's like, oh, well, maybe I'll watch that one. And I do like Cheyenne Woodley well enough. So there's not really a reason for me not to watch it, I guess. Fuck it. I'm going to go watch it.
Captain America, the First Avenger.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about that one a few episodes ago.
Yeah, like if it was on Netflix and I was free that day, I'd probably watch it again, but I'm not in a rush,
Yeah.
Pitch Perfect.
I'm not in a rush to watch Pitch Perfect either.
Have you seen it?
Have you?
Yeah, it's all right. It's fun.
I feel like if I'm interested in it, I'll watch like YouTube clips from it, but I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty predictable, but it's also the appeal is in the actors and the characters being fun to watch. Like you can watch them because they're, it's cool songs, a funny funny jokes here and there, and it's just, I don't know, it's not breaking the mold or anything, but it's a fun watch for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to watching it, but I'm not really going to go out of my way.
Yeah, I feel you. Gran Torino.
I really liked Gran Torino when it first came out. I wonder how it's aged, because I mean, it's not even that old. What is it, 2006 or something?
Yeah.
But I feel like they couldn't make that this year.
No.
So.
For everything Clint Eastwood does that I love, he does like other weird things that I just don't know if I feel comfortable with sometimes.
Yeah.
And this kind of falls in that area. I don't know.
I mean, if I remember correctly, the end thesis of the movie is about inclusiveness and like being there for your neighbors and like, you know, don't judge a book by its cover kind of stuff. So that's good. But it's just kind of like how when we talk about I, Tonya, it's tough to watch like beating women as like a comedic element. It's tough to watch like old fashioned racist slurs as a comedic element.
Yeah.
So I wonder how I would appreciate it now as an adult.
It's one of those things you just question if the ends justify the means completely.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
One day we might revisit it and figure it out. But
but that is not this day.
Yeah, it is not this day. One movie I haven't seen, but I keep meaning to, The Place Beyond the Pines, which I think you enjoyed.
Yeah, it's a really cool movie.
Yeah.
It's formatted in a very interesting way. It's like people talk about the 3-act structure in movies, but it's literally 3 different films, basically.
That's cool.
That do have ties, but they're mostly unrelated, and it's just a really neat movie. I feel like I might have put this one on when we were doing a co-host challenge. It might have been an option. I can't remember, but it's a good movie. It's worth checking out.
If it was probably one of my contenders that I didn't pick, but I wanted to.
Yes.
Because it's been on my list for a while.
Yeah.
It's getting closer all the time. After that, we have American Gangster.
I've never seen this one. Is that Denzel Washington?
Yeah, Denzel versus the Beautiful Mind guy.
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, thank you.
Classically known as the Beautiful Mind guy.
It was relevant. We talked about it earlier.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I've never seen it. So
I've seen parts of it. I never fully watched it, so I should also do that.
Yeah.
You know, it has appeal. I like both those guys, so.
Yeah. Any Denzel movie is a contender.
And then we don't do sequels, but one of these days we're just going to have to knock all these out.
If you say Fast 7.
No.
Okay.
Close. It's the Fast 7 of this series. It's not. Don't kill me for saying that. Return of the Jedi.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's my least favorite of the original trilogy.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
No, we don't do sequels, like I said, but I've been telling you for a while that we one day need to just watch as many of the Star Warses as we can and go through them. So I don't know. We'll figure that out.
I've also been telling myself I'm gonna rewatch the Lord of the Rings movies for like 7 years, and I haven't.
I know for sure you've been telling me you're gonna do that for 2 years straight. So
we'll definitely get on Star Wars. So.
Yeah. But that's it, man. That's our list.
A good little collection.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. So if you had to pick one film from that list to watch, like right now, what would it be?
You know what? Fault in Our Stars. Let's just do it.
Cool.
What about you? What are we watching?
I'd go The Place Beyond the Pines because I've mentioned so much that I should watch it.
You know, I'd let you borrow the Blu-ray and I'd pick up your copy of Pitch Perfect. Do a little swapsies.
That works.
We got a fun one next week too, don't we?
Do we? What is it?
The Big Lebowski.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Max, where can the good people find us in the meantime?
In the meantime, you can find me and Scott at the 300th and 75th Street YMCA. Or you could just find us at thecriticalbreakdown.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We're on all your local podcatchers.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me...
Mm-hmm.
You can find me grooming my pet hawk Mordecai.
Yeah.
Did that sound right? Pet hawk?
No.
Grooming my hawk.
I think it's right. It just doesn't sound right. Or
you can find me on Twitter at Max Rivera Film.
You can find me painting Dalmatian spots on my mice. Or you can find me at breakdown_Scott on Instagram. As Max mentioned, leave us a review, man. Join in on the fun. Everybody's leaving us reviews right now.
Yeah, man.
And you don't want to be the guy left holding the empty bag of reviews that you could have written.
Scott has a point.
Yeah, sometimes. Josh Rivera did our art.
Jason Brown did our music.
And Wally is still the podcast dog in 2018.
True.
So long may he reign. All right. How long did that clock in at?
104 with like
keeping in mind a 3-minute.
I was gonna say 104 with a 3-minute dookie break.
Dookie break. You hear that, Mickey? Dookie break.
Well, at least you don't gotta walk him. So
he looks shocked.
All right. Are we doing it next week?
Yeah, let's do it next week.
All right. Next week on the Critical Breakdown.
The pins are set and the bumpers are up. We're watching The Big Lebowski.
Nice.
Rated 81% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
I like your nice.
I was excited.
It stays in.
Oh, yeah.
I try to say to the editor.
All right, Mang.
Okay, man. Good sewed.
Yeah, dude.
We squeezed it. Speaking of squeeze, should we watch TBL separately?
Yeah, we might need to just to make sure we get in that Rico.
Yeah, I might do it over a couple nights. So, and then you guys leave Friday, right?
Yeah, and the only thing I have is I have to go meet Albert for a little bit on Wednesday from like 5 to 6, and then after that, I think I'm free all week. But we'll see.
Maybe we can shoot for a Wednesday evening record then. Would that work for you? After you do your elbow.
Yeah, that should be fine. Wednesday or Thursday.
What'd you say? Yeah, Wednesday or Thursday. I mean, as far as I know, I'm open. And then Jody said you guys get back Monday around noon, right?
Yeah.
So worst case scenario, you could squeeze an edit there, but let's try and get it so that you have the time to do it before if you wanted to.
That works.
All right, man.
All right, bye, boy.
Wow. Mickey heard through the headphones the sound of Walter's
crying and shaking.
Yeah, his shake.
Nice. Good job, Mickey.
Good boy.
All right,
he's a good boy. All right, man.
See you tomorrow.
Yep, sounds good. Talk to you later.